So I'm really excited to share with you today some of my perspectives on why we might want to use movement in education and some examples of how I've done that in my own educational practice in different contexts. So one reason that I think movement is helpful and can contribute to the educational practice is that it's active and engaging. We know from a lot of research that mind and body are connected. And so moving and being more engaged helps students interact with the material. It makes them learn it better. You know, moving also increases blood flow, brings oxygen to the brain. So it's very helpful, even from a physiological perspective, in promoting learning. Movement also, especially when we think about movement in different disciplinary contexts, can be a representational model. So today I'm not interested in only talking about movement as a teaching tool for teaching movement, but also across the various disciplines. So it can be used for more literal representations, like in this case, an interaction between two characters, but then it can also be used in a with more abstraction to it, where it's more representative of things that we can see. So here we're actually showing a community of birds. We have like the beaks of the birds and then different ways of showing their feathers that emanate from the birds. And even though I'm drawing a lot from the movement vocabulary of Bharatanatyam, because that's what I'm most familiar with, I think that this is true of any type of movement. So movement is great for conveying information to people through representational modeling, but also the process of embodying information, of actually turning information from other disciplines into movement, is a learning process in and of itself. And this can be applicable, as I said, across disciplines. And I mean, we just know, even from learning, that the process of creation is one of the highest levels of learning. And having to distill information and represent it in a different way is one of the ways that can be accomplished. And specifically, when we think about movement, it involves time and space. So there's a lot of dynamic processes, a lot of things that are multidimensional, not just spatially multidimensional, but they can have different emotional, temporal aspects to them that the complexity of movement can allow people to capture and represent in different ways. And this can be, you know, different aspects of embodying particular character, or it can be, you know, embodying different organisms. So here we have the embodiment of a turtle. So showing the shell and all of the different limbs. So how can we take that image and turn it into something that we can do in our bodies? And then, yeah, here there are different aspects of a character, and even in having to understand the depth of feeling in that character, be able to bring it out in a relatable way, that takes a lot of learning and being steeped in the process. So one of the ways that I've done this in a more biological context is in a class that I taught for the Foundation for the Advanced Education in the Sciences. And in this class, we were talking about different processes and molecular methods. So unfortunately, I don't have a picture from this particular activity that we did, but I was basically having the students get up and spatially model with all of their bodies in class the different arrangements of molecules in a protein crystal. And then they could use these spatial models to understand how these differences in arrangements interacted or created differences in the scattering of electrons. So if, okay, when we create this many-person patterned arrangement, now if I, you know, do some tennis balls in the air, what what are the different things that can happen to them? Okay, they can end up in the holes in between people, they can get bounced off, some of them can be caught. So it just created this physical model to make visible something that otherwise can be very abstract. So another example where I've done this, so this one was obviously in more of a traditional classroom setting, is in our NAKFI project. So this is a project that Kashi and I have worked on in conjunction with our dance company. And we were very lucky to have the support of the National Academies Keck Futures Initiative in doing this. And really the goal of this project is to bring awareness about dwindling marine ecosystems, to raise empathy about them. And I think one of the key ways in which we're doing this is having, us having to explore the perspective of the ocean and its life forms, and then, communicating that to our audiences, to a community of learners of all ages in different engagement events and performances. And so I think in this process, we are doing some professional performances of this. We're actually premiering the full-length production at the Kennedy Center next Saturday. So if you're interested in learning more about the work, we would love to have you there. But we're also, going into aquariums and museums and libraries to, have more of those engagement events where not only we'll be showing, but other people can also participate and take on these perspectives, think about them. And in thinking about my title for this talk, Movement as Metaphor, I think this representational aspect really comes out in this particular piece where we've thought about the relationship of humankind to the environment. We've created the metaphor of the of a relationship between people, and how what was once harmonious has now kind of fallen into disharmony, sometimes even without us fully recognizing it and recognizing the full impact of it. So I think that the level of abstraction and perspective taking can be really powerful. And from my personal experience in this project, thinking about how do you show a jellyfish or a crab, there's obviously the hood of the jellyfish, the part that you see, but then you start to think more deeply, what else can I show about that? How else does it move? How does it interact with things? What about its tentacles? How do they wrap around? How do you show the density of the water interacting with it? So I think the more I move in the process of creating this, the more I've also learned about the topic. So now I'm going to move to another example that's, again, a little bit more of a conventional course-based example. And this is one that actually I'm in the process of working on. We're planning to run this course in the fall. And it's a course that I'm co-designing with a number of people. One of them is a faculty member at the Olean College of Engineering, where we'll be running the class, but then also a number of Boston-based movement and visual artists and educators. And I think here what we're really trying to do is, we know that we all are physical beings in space, and when we were young, we learned about the world through moving through it. Our first experience with gravity was probably trying to stand up and falling back down. We didn't know it was called gravity at the time. But really kind of tuning back into ourselves as measurement devices, and to be able to use our bodies to understand the world and the forces within the world and how they interact with each other. And so I'm not quite sure exactly what it's going to look like, but I think it's based on this, this project-based model where the students can really create their own embodiments of different physical principles that they're interested in, so that they have to think deeply about them and how they would represent them. And so I've talked a lot thus far about kind of examples from the STEM fields, but I definitely don't think that movement is, an educational tool that can only be used in those fields. So my last example is actually from language and storytelling. And so this is based on some of the work that I've done in mostly elementary schools, working with children and having them come up with their own sentences or stories and think about how they would represent them. And then, when we ask them, why did you choose that gesture? What does that mean to you? It forces them to make visible some of their, and to reflect on some of their ways of thinking about language and those words. And this is a tool that I don't think, is only applicable to elementary school students. I think it's something that we all can do, and I know that, there are some researchers who actually use movement as an analysis tool for qualitative research to help them understand and embody different perspectives of research participants to understand more deeply some of the themes that arise in that work. So I think movement is a way of learning and knowing that is broadly applicable. And so now we're going to try something today to exemplify that. So I'm going to give all of you, 15 to 20 seconds to think about how you would embody or show the word yellow. Think about it. All right. And now I want you to go ahead and turn to a neighbor or somebody next to you and show them how you would embody a gesture, a movement, a facial expression for the word yellow, and why you chose that.
Yeah, that was my thought.
All right. So we're actually going to bring it back together. All right, so I saw a lot of upward movements. I heard someone saying sun. Any other ideas, things you want to share of how emoji, smiley face, and so your gesture was waving? Yeah?
The letter Y for yellow.
The letter Y for yellow. Great. Sun. And how did you show sun?
Bright.
Bright? Yeah. Oh, okay. Sun can also be this? Yeah?
Banana.
Banana? How did you show that?
I'm not very good at it.
That's okay.
But sort of like.
Awesome. So you had this for banana. Great. Any others?
So I yell and then, I don't know.
And so that was, what was that representing? Your yell. Oh, okay.
Like Jell-O,
Yell.
yellow.
Oh, okay. Got it. Great. Yeah. So, any others? I don't want anyone to feel left out. All right. Yeah. So I think that it really gives us an idea of what our first impressions or our first associations are, even with the word yellow. And I think we could see some common themes, a lot of people thinking about light and sun and things like that, and then some people thinking along slightly different lines. So hopefully, I just want to summarize in that movement allows us to learn and understand and engage with information in new ways, whether that's engaging with language, engaging with the sciences, that this process of taking information and representing it through the medium of movement can be really informative, not just to people who are watching, but also to the people actually doing it. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. It's great to be able to share with you. And I'd also love to thank all of the funding bodies that have supported my work.